Hello and welcome to another episode of Critiquing the Critics. What have I been doing since last time? Watching movies about zombie mutant killer Sushi.
Sushi? What the? We're being attacked by flying sushi!
It was amazing. Anyway, today's subject, oh boy, SF debris. SF debris is short for science fiction debris, giving us the first indication of what his subject is. Science fiction? Oh wait, no, I said something stupid again. Actually, his subject is romance. What? I was right the first time around? Huh, that's new. I would have thought I'd make a stupid gag out of that. I must not be as predictable as I thought. Now, every once in a while, he'll review something a little less science fiction-y, presumably because if you donate $50 to him, he'll review whatever the hell you want. And yet, nobody has taken advantage of this and forced him to review Attack of the Vegan Zombies. I know, right? SF Debris has acquired quite the reputation, but those who follow my works may remember my subtle but unspoilery indications that I wasn't his biggest fan. I'm not his biggest fan. But why? Do I think he's a bad reviewer? No, not really. My feelings towards him are far more complicated than that. Every good point is met with a bad point, and every bad point is met with a fire-breathing zombie sushi point. Although I will concede that the majority of my complaints are more personal and aren't intended to be taken as objective criticism. My gut tells me that I'm missing something. You're missing something? F you, gut. Anyway, if I am overlooking something important, please comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. Let's have an intelligent discussion. That is difficult to say. Who am I kidding? Just go ahead and get your, what right do you have to review them speeches out of the way. Stop the video and ponder as to why that is a stupid question. Oh, fanboys, you say the silliest things. So let's bring up the reviewer Triforce and completely ignore it, as it will implode under the madness of my opinions regarding SF Debris. I mean, seriously, can you imagine the arrows on this thing? Ugh, so much work. So what do I dread the most about his videos? The running time. That's not very long. That is super long. Even though I often whine about long running times in reviews, it should be noted that I am perfectly willing to accept them as long as the length is justified. I felt that SF lacked sufficient content to fill up 40 minutes worth of review. His videos are spoiler heavy, with him seemingly discussing every scene within the subject. Now this is the formula of many reviewers, including the nostalgia critics, so why is it worse when SF Debris does it? Because at times that seems like that's all it is. While he does pepper things up with some comedy, he's generally serious, so it's not like his reviews are being played for laughs, usually. And while there is some critiquing, it's treated as an afterthought, so more time can be devoted to SF summarizing. If I've already seen what he is reviewing, then I'm probably going to be bored because I don't want to spend 80% of the video going over what I already know. I'm more interested in your opinions on the subject, not the subject itself. I've seen it. I know what happens. But if I have not seen what he is reviewing, then I probably either won't watch the video or I won't watch whatever he is reviewing because I do not like spoilers. Fans call this analysis. I call it a glorified plot synopsis, with herpes sprinkled on top.
Mac and Copper arrived to find the Norwegian camp still smoking and the place trashed. One guy inside took his own life. There's barricades, a fire axe buried in the wall, and weirdest of all, a block of ice with something removed from the inside. Outside they find burned bodies, including the remains of Splitface. Everyone is naturally shocked, except for the dog who watches all of this with great interest. Earlier we had seen it slip into a room with someone else for nefarious purposes. Now, putting aside what the prequel shows, one thing clear from the remains is that the camp was a war zone. And despite the advantages the thing lost, with only a single dog surviving all of its takeovers, and even that was only because the humans who didn't know any better stopped its pursuers.
Now, what's odd is that this is about as consistent as my facial hair. Sometimes he does balance his walkthrough of the movie or TV show with his own observations, and guess what? When he spends more time actually reviewing, his works are pretty solid. He makes interesting points which go beyond it's good or it's bad, and he articulates his claims perfectly. The man is wildly intelligent, and it shows in how everything is written, even when his reviews seem to lack substance.
As the blast goes off, the film shows us first Dr. Oak's daughter, briefly catching fire before being vaporized, the numerous freeze frames of people being vaporized, one frame after another after another. Now, they don't make sense from a straight narrative perspective, given what these people are doing. A lot of them are outside or at work or something like that. I mean, what are they saying? Is that the air raid sirens? Well, screw them. I'm just a leaner away from winning at horseshoes, damn it. But the intent is not to show what is actually happening literally. Its intent is to show what is happening symbolically. It's bringing home the same point over and over again. We are inflicting horrific death on a massive scale, not by showing them as they die, but showing them as they had lived.
Another positive element of his better videos is even though he often said things I disagreed with, I understood his points, and that is better than just agreeing. Something I hope his fans won't forget. But why can't it be like this every time? The inconsistency drives me insane! Some good reviews which showcase him at his most informative are The Day After and Sunshine. I consider his coverage of The Thing, Stargate, and especially the Avatar series to be his dullest works because there's more explaining than critiquing. SF Debris also needs to work on his pacing, even though presumably his fan base would say otherwise. But I tell myself that I am more important, and since I am always right except when I'm wrong, then your opinion does not matter, even though it does. I feel his delivery lacks energy, and he speaks a little bit too slowly. He also has the tendency to pause a lot, and I don't understand why he doesn't just edit those out. Speaking of editing, it is probably one of his weaker areas. It's not bad, it's just very simplistic. Maybe too simplistic considering his popularity, and clips will just play on regardless of whether or not they tie into what he is saying. I consider crummy editing to be what I used to do, so at least he's a couple of 1,000 steps above that. I just wish he'd throw in some stills, or maybe even footage of himself to spice things up. Once again, he could trim out those unnecessary pauses too, which likely would save him a couple of minutes. Now, his uninspired editing is likely responsible for him releasing so many projects within a short time period. So you actually might prefer this. I mean, he releases 4 videos in a week, whereas I'm lucky to release 1 video in 4 weeks. And would you say my editing is worth it? What the hell? Where did this all come from? On the happier side of things, I really want his microphone. It captures everything he's saying without obstruction and is far superior than my shitty little headset. He also has a rather pleasant sounding voice that actually is distinct and very memorable. He sounds like a natural born speaker, and I just want to say that I am envious of his vocal skills. His sense of humor is very deadpan, but honestly it didn't sit well with me. When he's making fun of what he's reviewing, it sometimes works and it sometimes fails. I did not like his review of the first Star Trek episode where he overplays the snarkiness. It reached a point where you'd expect him to dislike the subject, but then he suddenly drops a positive rating on our groins. My erection was not pleased with this. But when he is reviewing something crappy like Battlefield Earth or the Wonder Woman pilot, he can be pretty entertaining. He finds creative ways to make fun of them and in the process actually reviews them. He has some funny moments in his reviews of good films too, but sometimes it just feels like nitpicking and, well, his comedy just isn't my cup of tea. Then again, I don't like tea very much, although if tea is standing in for comedy, that would imply I don't like comedy, which I do, so I guess I like tea? What was I talking about again? I suppose I should just move on. Unfortunately, the majority of his comedic bits, the good and the bad, are tied into the context and wouldn't make sense if you just saw individual clips, so I can't show much there. But even though I've done my own share of bitching, none of this immediately screams bad reviewer to me. It's just that I don't agree with his style of reviewing. When I watch a review of The Thing, I don't necessarily want a scene-by-scene walkthrough. I want to hear the reviewer's opinion on it. But I also don't share his comedic sensibilities, so maybe he's telling more jokes than I'm picking up on. Yet at times, I would enjoy his works whenever his opinions would override the plot synopsis, and I think his level of snark works nicely with bad movies movies or bad TV show episodes. SF Debris has made a connection to a surprisingly big audience, and they are clearly seeing something I don't. Just as I see something you don't in the appeal of Killer Zombie Sushi having a musical number. I can't help it if he's just not for me. I'm giving him a 2-star rating, but I'd still recommend you give him a shot. Maybe you will become one of his many fans. If you'd like to watch his videos, he has a pretty epically designed website. He also has a YouTube page, but it only contains trailers for his actual reviews. Please check out my website if you'd like to flame me until I turn gay. Wait, I don't like that idea. Follow me on Twitter if you want to know who my next subject is. Damn it, why do I always spoil it in the plug? This is why no one follows me. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Remember my little graboids, these are only my opinions. I don't expect you to agree. You asked me to review him, fanboys. I did not ask myself to do so, even though I have done that in the past. Anyway, my name is MartialHorror, and I'm here to tell you that those who cannot do, critique. And yes, the pauses do diminish the impact of his humor. Please, Mr. Debris, start editing those out. I'll suck your... Final summation. Yes. Let's just pretend I wasn't going to say something weird. Haha.